lot of people get up in our business about kids, too. Oh, you gonna have kids? You gonna have some kids? It's always somebody who has kids. We have kids. You should have kids. I don't know what that is. That's not a thing. I don't. And it's always like if someone's with a newborn, their smile is like, kids are great. But then if you look into their eyes, right? We need souls to eat. Get over here. You're like, I'm gonna back up a little bit. I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna have kids. Honestly, I'm afraid of kids, and not. I'm not. Sorry. I'm a grown man. I'm not afraid. Like, if a kid wanted to fight me, I'd kick his ass. You know, I'm not like afraid of a kid. I just mean the idea of being a father brings me anxiety. Do you know what I mean? What I'm most afraid of is dad anger. If you're not familiar with dad anger is a legitimate disease. It affects 99.9% of all men with kids. It's essentially irrational anger and inanimate objects. That's what it is, really. And you can't stop it. There's no cure for dad anger. Like, the pill companies aren't coming out with anything. There's no commercials of, like, dads awkwardly dancing on a pier. Like, do you suffer from dad anger? Take this pill, go bald and lose your boner, or whatever horrible side effects they would throw at you. But I do think if you're going to be a dad today and you want to avoid dad anger, I honestly think marijuana might be a legitimate cure, okay? Now look, I'm not a scientist, but I've done my research, okay? There's no other cure. We need to figure this out, but this is what happened. Last Christmas, I was back in town. I went to my friend Scott's. He lives in the burbs. Scott has 3 kids, a wife, a house, a job. It was a pretty normal life. So I went over to see Scott on Christmas Day. And that evening, his kids and his wife were finishing dinner in the other room. Now, me and Scott aren't animals, so we go to the garage to get high, right? Then we come back inside pretty quick because it's December and it's freezing. So we're in the kitchen having some beers, catching up. Youngest son in the other room thinks he's done with his meal. He's not. Picks up his plate with food all over it, starts swinging around his head like a lasso, comes running into the kitchen, runs in between me and Scott and just whips the plate into the sink at 1,000 miles an hour. Plate chunks go flying up, food chunks, everything skips all over the place. It hits me, I jump back, I'm startled, like, what the fuck? The kid skips out of the room. I look up, Scott hasn't moved. He just casually leans over the sink and says, dude. And that's it. And then he tried to go back into the conversation we were having. I go, don't dude me, guy. We gotta talk about your psycho kid running in here and whipping plates into the sink. And then I locked eyes with him. I go, shit, you're high. You're baked. And you realize in the scheme of this world's problems, that broken dinner plate doesn't mean shit, right? You've got kids you love. You got a house that keeps everybody warm. You got a wife you don't want to kill. You got a job that pays for it. You're genuinely a happy person. And that is a beautiful thing. And then I immediately thought of my own father, who'd never smoked pot a day in his life. That man would kick you down an open elevator shaft for getting the phone cord on the wall tangled up, all right? That's where I learned about dad anger. 7 years old, looking into the kitchen of the house I grew up in. I could see my old man in there, my father, getting into a fight, a physical altercation, with a piece of individually wrapped American cheese. And it just got worse and worse. He was like, fuck cheese, fuck, cheese, fuck. He just rips it in half, throws it on the ground, storms out of the kitchen. I'm 7, I'm like, God, we gotta get all this cheese out of here. Dad hates cheese, everybody. I don't want to be an adult if I can't love cheese. That looks terrible. But as I got older, much wiser, I realized that wasn't about cheese at all. That piece of cheese represented my father's dreams. And his clenched fists represented what me and my brother had done to them. Could have been a National Geographic photographer fucking kids! I want to love cheese forever, so I don't know if me and the wife are going to have any kids, I think is what I'm getting there.